Hello, everyone. Welcome to We Know Reality TV, where we are wrapping up the 8th episode of Season 11 of The Amazing Race Canada. My name is Jess Liese. We've got a great action-packed episode full of adrenaline tasks and truck Tetris and many, many other things quite like that. And, of course, with me, as always, is a gentleman who's ready to break down, if not break dance, Mr. Dan Heaton.
Oh, yes. I would not have been ready in that task, but Jess, did you know this was the longest leg of the race? John dropped that truth bomb on us. Longest leg of the race because it was 2 episodes.
Yeah, that just call it 2 legs. Call it what it is, 2 legs. Keep on Racing leg is not, I understand there's no pit stop, but that's still 1 leg per episode. You don't get to call this and mega leg, Keep on Racing, I don't care. An episode is a leg, and maybe that's a hill I'm going to die on.
Come on, John. Come on, person that wrote the thing that John read. What are you doing?
Yeah, I've not heard Captain Obvious comments coming out of an Amazing Race host's mouth quite so voraciously since the time Phil told the camera with a straight face that Italy is shaped like a boot.
That was take 22 when he did that, but
Yeah.
where he didn't laugh. But no, this was sad, Jess, because I really liked Lacey and Celia. I didn't think they were going to win the race, but I really liked the way they approach it and everything. But you kind of saw it coming pretty early on here. Evie and Blake didn't see it coming, but the rest of us saw that they were probably getting eliminated after the first task.
Yeah, I think we were about 5 minutes into the episode when it became apparent that this was going to be one of those legs where the editors had their work cut out for them, creating any kind of suspense here. And I think the one thing that saved it for me is the fact that Evie and Blake had no clue until the very end. And that was kind of exciting. I think it's one of my favorite things on The Amazing Race is when a team thinks they are far out of it and that there's no chance for them. And then all of a sudden they realize. In fact, I think my favorite Amazing Race episode of any iteration from the last several seasons was the one where they were in Germany and the team got very, very lost. And you saw the Idaho guys spending the whole leg just kind of enjoying themselves because they knew it was their last hurrah and they were too far back to make up the time. So they were just going to go up to Phil and talk about what a great time they had on the race. And then they find out that there's a team behind them and it was gold. And this, I felt like, was the mini version of that, in the same way that, globally speaking, Amazing Race Canada is the mini version of American Amazing Race.
Yeah. There's one, I think it's an early season. There's a moment where a team's doing a task and they did their last. And one of the partners hey, we're not last. And it's that idea. And really the thing is that Evie and Blake have been such, competitors. And so we've got to win and everything. I mean, I never thought it was in a mean way or whatever. They always seem to be having a good time, but this leg, they just approached it the same way, which is what you need to do. But yeah, I mean, it tells you something when they're up there and and they're trying to convince themselves. They're he's he can catch Magoo or he can catch Nippy on the rope cross of the towers. And I'm sitting there watching going, he doesn't really believe that. There's no way. They're so far apart. But then that's happened. I'm jumping way ahead here though, Jess. It's funny too, because I said they fell behind on the first task. No. The first task was technically the boost task, the task where you had to find the ingredients. I just jumped right ahead of it. It was partially last week. And that task made almost no sense to me what was even happening, Jess, except for find 5 things that everyone seems to be able to do and read off some fun ingredients from Boost.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Nanaimo Bar bungee jump from several seasons back, where they'd have to memorize the ingredients and do the bungee jump and repeat the ingredients back. This was the kind of the Pee-wee version of that, because you had a little bit of thrills, but that ropes course, that's not something they built for the race. That's something that corporate departments can go and like have team building out there. This is there all the time. In fact, I feel like if you're going on Amazing Race Canada, it probably behooves you to go to your nearest ropes course and spend some time there, because they're probably going to send you to one of these local chambers of commerce when they get to that town is going to make you go on the ropes course. So I don't know. There's no moment that really sticks in my head with this one. This one's like, I'm going to forget it as quickly as Boost is going to go through their systems. Because there's no moment of somebody leaping out off of a bridge screaming unsalted butter.
That was great. I like that one much better.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about it here is that, there was a few where some people were smarter and they like wrote down, they're like, okay, everything they tell me, I'm going to write down. And then others did not think of that. So the show made a big deal like, oh, some teams did this better, but it really didn't matter that much. I mean, there was a slight switch as far as like the big move there as far as the flights was Jesse and Jonathan jumping into that top group where they were 5th last week and they ended up, 3rd and getting on the first flight. But we had the U-turn vote, which talk about ho-hum. I spent all this time analyzing what could happen. And then it was kind of what we all thought was going to happen anyway. I read the previews. I saw, Ika crying, not related to this at all. And wasn't really crying that much. It was like one tear that the show was so happy they showed. But so obviously there were 3 on Jesse and Jonathan, as we suspected, and they did too. 3 on EB and Blake. And so here's my thought. EB and Blake get done second. They get the tickets for the flight. They said they didn't have time to talk to someone. Couldn't they just hang out by the U-turn vote and wait and try to talk to somebody? And they should not have voted for Jesse and Jonathan, but I think they just wanted to get moving. Maybe they needed to move. They couldn't wait. But I was thinking, couldn't they just wait and be like, hey guys, we voted for Ike and Dimitri. Will you do it too? We'll help you later or something. But they were done. I mean, they were cooked.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe there was something in the rules that said you couldn't do that, but that you're signing up for a flight. There's going to be bunching. You're not gonna maintain your lead. There is no downside to hanging out there and like trying to throw your weight on the vote. But how psyched do Ika and Dimitri have to be, because they finally didn't have to bear the brunt of the other teams. So they got that going for them, which is nice. And in the end, it ends up being 3-3. Jesse and Jonathan and EB and Blake. And I feel like if you're EB and Blake, why isn't it the move to vote for Jesse and Jonathan? That's the other team that people are going to be gunning for.
Well, my thought, I guess that if you don't know what anyone's doing, you try and pile on them.
Mm-hmm.
I was just trying to think if the teams probably didn't think there'd be another U-turn vote, especially this late in the race. Like people were saying, they're like on episode 8, this could really have an impact. It didn't, but it could have. It could have for them. Jesse and Jonathan, I think they perform better when they're U-turned or when they're passed. So, they get U-turn and they're just like, yeah, we might win the leg. We might be 3rd. We didn't even need our express pass, which I would love to say that's arrogant, but kind of true.
Also true, yeah.
So, totally true. But yeah, so even if they had voted for Ike and Dimitri, then it just would have been 3-2-1. So it would have still been the same result. It was more they didn't have the chance to talk to anyone. So I don't mean to pick on them. It's just too bad, because I think placing it there, though, in this exact point, the first time the show went out of their way to make sure teams had time to talk. I think this time they wanted it to be more not that way. But it ended up just kind of being, of course, it's going to be those 2 teams. Now, Ike and Dimitri, I think, though, the 2 teams that have done a lot of legwork and trying to work together with the other teams, Ike and Dimitri and Grace and Joe, I think that paid off this week, because you saw like early on, no one really knew Grace and Joe. So they were voted for in the first U-turn vote. This time, those 4 teams that were not the top 2 had all been working together last week. So they're like, of course, I'm not going to vote for the team that just helped me. Nothing. It's not against EB and Blake as much as those 4, I think, have really bonded. Yeah,
that's an astute observation about Grace and Joe. They didn't really have any social game at the beginning, but now I feel like they're really coming into their own. They're kind of heating up at the right time. I think there is one strategy that didn't really get discussed at any point that I think is something to consider when you have a U-turn vote like this. And that is, who can you U-turn that you're not going to see again? And I think in this case, Jesse and Jonathan was a good choice to vote for because they were way in back when they finished the leg, and they are probably going to make that time up, but you have a chance now. You have a little bit of lead time on them. It's now is your chance to try to push them further back. And there's always one of those eliminations that feels like a big surprise. It feels like it comes out of nowhere. We've already had a couple of those this season. I would imagine that it would have to be tempting, but it would also be, for me, it would be equally tempting to U-turn like Nippy and Magoo or Lacey and Celia, because we know they're near the back of the pack. We know that they've been in danger of getting eliminated. And if you throw one more thing at them, they might get eliminated. You don't have to deal with them being mad at you because, hey, they're gone. And you also don't have to deal with other teams that are still in it and still good being mad at you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's just this season, I mean, because especially early on, Jesse and Jonathan started out so dominant, and then Evie and Blake won a few legs. And until last week, we hadn't had anyone else. Now Grace and Joe have won two, which perfect timing for them to avoid the passes and the U-turns recently because they won now. But I think with the way this season started, teams just are hyper focused. And the fact that Jesse and Jonathan got U-turned and then won that other leg actually didn't really, it might have hurt them, but I don't know. It's hard for me though, especially given all the prizes teams are getting, to be like, yeah, don't try to win. But it's worked out well for Ika and Dimitri, and here for Grace and Joe, even though they won the leg, to have their threat level start to go down and to be like, hey, we're the underdogs. We're all the underdogs. It's very good for something like a U-turn, because then even though they may be stronger than Lacey and Celia, not in certain tasks, but in certain things, or Nippy and Magoo in certain things, they don't seem that way. It's like the four of us are the same. And that's really great for them this week. I mean, it wouldn't have really mattered, but it was nice for them not to feel that pressure.
Yeah, I think it, and you could see they were really relaxed this whole leg. They didn't feel like they were in any kind of danger. I think I have the most criticism in this episode for whoever thought it was a grand idea to reveal the results of the U-turn vote before people even got to the detour and knew what anything freaking was. That's not a U-turn. U-turn vote results should be when you get to the clue box after you complete your half of the detour. Then you find out you gotta go back, you gotta do a U-turn and do the other one. Am I crazy, Dan? This is what a U-turn is, and it makes me so mad when the U-turn goes before the detour. You shouldn't know going in that you have to do both tasks. You should be gunning it through one task and hoping that you don't have to go back and do the other one.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad in multiple ways. One way, because it's not a U-turn, like you said. It's more of it's like a fork of the road where you have to take both sides or something like that. But in another way, it's not as good for TV, because the drama on TV is better if a team, like you've got these teams, they're all having the falling montage where everyone's trying to a scooter. They're all falling hilariously. And then the teams don't know. They're like, man, I'm a bad dancer, except Magoo. I'm a bad dancer. I don't want to do the other one. Oh no, I got U-turned. That's good drama. And it would have impacted, if they didn't know, it might have made teams more stressed out during the really boring packing challenge. That would have been more dramatic, because teams the whole time are thinking, I got to do this quickly because later on I might get U-turned. I don't know what's going to happen. Instead, everybody knows. So the teams that are in good shape don't feel they're like, oh, they can get ahead of me. They got U-turned. You know, we're okay. So I don't know. It kind of sapped a little energy.
And how much fun would it be to have like an Ika and Dimitri, assuming they are going to get U-turned, and having that color everything they're doing up to the point where they get to the end of their detour and find out they're not. And how excited would you be if you assumed everybody had voted for you to get U-turned? You get to the U-turn board at the end of your detour, you find out, oh, I'm done. I could just keep on trucking. I don't have to go back. I don't have to do a U-turn. I think it's fun. And I think, especially since we saw these teams doing a lot of strategizing and thinking about, well, since I have to do them both, which one should I do first? I think to have the other teams who perceive themselves as a threat think about, like, how do I want to tackle this? Or conversely, if you had a team that wasn't expecting to get U-turn and they get blindsided by it, I just don't know what they're thinking by continuing to have this ahead of the detour.
Yeah, they did that earlier. Earlier, it was more of a bigger reveal when they did it in the first time, but it had the same issue, especially because Jesse and Jonathan had the express pass where they even were able to strategize more because they had that. But setting that aside, again, the teams knew it. Yeah, it's something we've seen the same thing. I don't know why all these different iterations of the Amazing Race are so scared to make the U-turn a U-turn.
Cowards.
And I know part of it is I think detours lately, both times when we've had this U-turn vote, they've had the detours, one, be pretty easy, and two, be near each other. This one especially was basically, well, I mean, it was in the same place. It's right. So, that saves money, but that also doesn't add to it because, again, everybody's roped together and you can see everybody and all that. I mean, I guess it's good for production, but it's not great for TV, I guess.
No, it's not. But shall we talk about the truck Tetris challenge? Because this was a tough as nails challenge. This is something I've seen before. They got a bunch of different boxes of different sizes, and you've got to pack it up. And I liked the tie-in because usually when we're flogging Chevrolet on Amazing Race Canada, it's a car that you have to drive that you might want to buy. And I really appreciated that this is a made in Canada industrial vehicle that they're just highlighting as something else that Chevy makes. I thought that was kind of a fun thing and a little bit less blatantly consumerist.
Yeah, because sure, there's probably someone who owns a business or something that is like, I might want to buy that, but it's probably a pretty small percentage so it's an ad. But yeah, it's different. I don't want to repeat what you just said. I agree with what you said. don't want to say the whole thing. That's great podcasting. But yeah, I thought that part of it was interesting. And I like that at least they did have some parameters. Like you can't do what I would do with moving. It's just like, anyway, we can get everything in the back and shut it and sort of shut it. Let's get the bungee cords out. No, they couldn't put it in that middle row. And they had to shut it, which didn't seem hard. The hard part seemed to be keeping things out of that kind of middle aisle part, especially the really tall ones. And everyone was kind of confused by the arrows. And Ika knows what she's doing here. And Dimitri does not believe that the big stuff should go in there first.
Yeah, but tell me you've never moved without telling me you've never moved.
He's hired a mover before.
Yeah, he hires one of the fancy movers that come and pack it for you.
Yeah, not the two guys in a truck or something that kind of just take the big stuff or simple moves.
I've never not packed my own stuff. No,
I mean, it's been a while since we moved into our house, but I think we got someone to move a few big things, but that was pretty much it. But I do appreciate though that he even laughed at himself after, and he they joked about it where he's just like, yeah, you're right. You're right. I totally was wrong. That's a healthy relationship. That's
good for Ika for locking that down. That one's a keeper.
Yeah, because Amazing Race. I mean, in life, that's true, but Amazing Race doesn't, especially under the stress of the Amazing Race, doesn't always lead to the best examples of this. But no, it was funny. It was funny. It was not, bad. I like that. Funny relationship squabbles, not bad or scary. Don't like that.
Yeah, no, I like the comical ones that resolve themselves immediately. That's the conflict we want. So yeah, there's not much to say here except those boxes were obviously all empty. I think it could have been fun if they'd had stuff in them. The arrows turned out not to mean a gosh darn thing. And it seemed like there was a way to get through this that Celia and Lacey were absent that day when they taught this in school.
Yeah, I mean, the boxes were obviously much bigger than them. So that was an added challenge. But it did seem like they kind of just put everything in there and then we were like, we don't really know what to do. And then, of course, you have the stress of people are leaving and you're just like, what do we do? but I don't know. This didn't feel like, I mean, this felt like something some people would do faster than others. Like Diamond Driller Joe was just like, okay, let's strategize how to do this. I mean, no problem at all. But I don't know, that this, it's weird because, you know, remember when they had their non-elimination leg before, it was a puzzle, but then they come to these tasks where it's like, wow, that looks impossible. And those Liese and Celia just like rock it, because a lot of things, dancing, acting, the things, memorizing, things which I would struggle with, they nail, they destroy. It's something like this. I feel like, yeah, they just haven't done it, and it kind of stumped them.
Yeah. And you never know what that task is going to be for you, but we all have it.
Mhm.
I think it's important to note that every single one of us has one of those. It's a big blind spot, and we don't know about it. It's the unknown unknown of Amazing
I have
Race.
many. Yeah, I have
Oh,
many,
yeah.
I think.
I have many known unknowns. I don't know how many unknown unknowns I have, but I bet it's a lot. I bet there's a lot of things. Somebody put it in front of me and it would just destroy me. And so I cannot cast any aspersions here. I think Liese and Celia did a tremendous job on literally everything else. It was just like this was their Achilles heel. And it's unfortunate here because I don't think this was a task that anybody intended somebody to spend that much time on. It was kind of a filler task. But then, yeah, we get to, it did mix things up quite a bit. So I think there was kind of a spread because you have Jesse and Jonathan finishing first and getting out of there in a hurry. And then you have Nippy and Magoo being super good at it and leaving second. And then we get to the detour, which honestly, Dan, this whole leg, I feel like there's nothing ridiculous. We are missing ridiculous things. I feel like this scooter obstacle course was supposed to be the ridiculous thing. And then it did not deliver on the ridiculousness that I wanted. Like we've seen people falling off of stuff all season. This was not even remarkable falling.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it was missing. Did they need to wear a funny hat? Did they need
We needed a costume.
Outfits? I don't know. Like, you know, did an animal need to be involved? I don't know. There was something extra here. And even the breakdancing, which I mean, the breakdancing really, I mean, Magoo's the star of the breakdancing. He kind of saved the breakdancing just with his I just love the idea that he's like, I've been breakdancing for 30 years, and both of them are like, we've got this, and he's doing great moves. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know this was happening. And then he's just like, I forgot how much breakdancing hurts your legs. Oh,
That's
man,
why they call it breakdancing, right?
They're both like, I can see myself being, they're both standing there with their legs like, man, I don't know if we've done something like this in a while. This is a lot. But yeah, Magoo was just, I want to remember, what was his term that he used for his dancing? Oh, his freestyle Magoo-goos. That's what it was. Yeah. So that helped. That helped a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the dancing was fine. You know, they got a lot of locals to come in and be the crowd. That's always fun. They got some music playing. But I think we've seen this task a lot of times, something like it. Maybe not breakdancing exactly, but something pretty similar.
I mean, honestly, it's been breakdancing before. But yeah, Amazing Race Canada loves them some dancing tasks. This one did not seem terribly hard either. There was just that like little thing you had to do with your leg. But everything else, it seemed like this was one of those ones they weren't really grading on style points, and you didn't have to get it exactly correct. You just had to do the leg thing. And we don't even really see anybody screwing this up too hard. You see Nippy Magoo, like it says it's their sixth time, but we didn't see them failing that much. And that judge maybe the judge needed to be ridiculous. Maybe that's what's missing. That guy was just like, and we had a lot of those judges in the last couple of times. And I think you needed to have one judge that was really committing to the bit in the same way that we had 3 last week that were committing to it. Nobody really seemed like they were super into it. They were just doing a job, and they did the job fine. They were great, but they weren't hamming it up. They weren't chewing on the scenery. And I think that's something that would have made this whole thing pop for me.
Yeah. The judge was kind of like, well, I guess that was good enough, or the usual, you need to go practice some more, which that's a common Amazing Race.
I'm sorry,
Especially
that
Canada.
wasn't quite right.
Yeah, and it's like, we just see the judge. I don't like it when you just see the judge and they're like, is he even talking to anyone right now? Is he just recording this beforehand? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Jesse and Jonathan, we saw them miss once. It was just timing. We saw the same thing with Nippy and Magoo where the timing was off. But beyond that, I mean, I do think Liese and Celia probably did this much better than was ever needed. They were so much better. They were so much better than the task itself. But yeah, I mean, it sticks because you know that 2 teams at least are going to do both. Here we had 4 teams do this one, 4 teams do the other one because of the U-turn, But I don't know. Besides Magoo, I don't know what to say about this. I mean, it was interesting in the intro. They showed somebody like spinning on their head, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to make them do something like that. No, not so much. They couldn't. That would be insane.
That is a major liability issue. If somebody wants to spit on their head of their own accord, via con Dios, my friend, but I don't think you can compel anybody to do that.
No, probably not. Yeah, and that's the thing. I also think the scooter didn't look like it took very long. I know that people fell down a lot, but they had a time component to it, but at least as far as the edit, because again, Amazing Race Canada, you're only going to spend so much time on this. You've got the one you paid more for of the towers later. We want to spend time on that. Here, it was just like a 30-second funny fall montage, but like you said, not the funniest we've ever seen. And that's it. I don't really know much else about the scooters. It seemed like something I could do, just I might fall down a few times.
Yeah, this was one. So I've gotten my 8-year-old to sit with me and watch quite a bit of this season, and that was one he said, I could do this in my sleep. And I don't doubt it, because this is actually one that I've had a fair amount of practice with, because when he was much smaller, he made me buy my own scooter so that I could go scootering with him. So I've been on one of those little Razor scooter jobbies quite a bit in the last several years. So I'm not worried about it. I think we'd be fine.
Yeah. I have not great balance, but I think I could do it. Probably not as well as the teams or as you and George. I don't think I could do it as well, but I will say also I enjoyed the moment where I think it was Blake who tried to put the knee pads on his arm. So that was fun. But fun. I mean, I'm really grasping at straws here. It's kind of like, I mean, it was fine. I don't have any objections to it. It was just kind of like, all right, it's cool. Yeah.
And the same thing with this next task that we're going to talk about, because this is another task where it's like, yeah, it's fine, it's cool. But they were relying on it to be a much bigger spectacle than it was. And I think that's maybe where we got a little tripped up here, because we're going to these big towers, and it's a big spectacle. It's a death-defying stunt. And you got to go on these ascenders, which are very physically demanding, as we know from previous seasons of Amazing Race across the globe. And yet, it's like we've seen the high heights thrill task so many times, and it didn't really seem to completely kill anybody. Nobody broke down sobbing. People were a little bit trepidatious, but basically just don't look over your shoulder and you're fine. You just kind of lie on your back and like move the thing and make it go. And you didn't even really get that obligatory, wow, this is so amazing shot. You didn't even get that. People were not amazed. The racers themselves were jaded by this. And I feel like it made me jaded. The one thing I did like about it was Evie and Blake freaking out about being in last place until the very, very end, when they realize that Liese and Celia have not even gotten on there, and they just kind of wave at them. That part was fun.
Yeah, that's funny too. The team that's in last is like, hey, how's it going? It's like they're the team that's in last. They're just like, hey, we're doing it. I thought this was fine. I did get fooled a little bit where before the commercial break, we had Ika like, I can't do it. I got to get off. And I'm thinking, how do you get off that thing? You're right in the middle. And so she did. I mean, she's afraid of heights. Oh, I should mention the clue, who's building confidence.
That could be anything.
Yeah, that's that they knew what they were doing there. I mean, I know Marie is no longer on the race, but oh my, that would have been something given how she was on that bridge that they were on. But yeah, I mean, Ika
Yeah.
obviously afraid of heights, so it was cool to see. Nippy, same thing. Afraid of heights, had to do both of the things where she was up high this week. But yeah, there was one moment where Jesse looked down and like did the thing we said not to
Mhm.
do. Because at the time I was like, just lay on your back, don't think about it. And it's like, and he turns around and looks. And was like, oh no. But he didn't, he said he's afraid of heights. I remember that from the first episode. But again, and Celia, I know this was very tough for physically. So I think the racers brought what they could to this. I mean, I'm not saying they were being genuine. I'm just saying the racers had some challenges to overcome. So I think as a racer coming out of that, like it was probably a really big deal for Nippy to get through it and for Ika to get through it. I'm just not sure for TV. I mean, it was fine, and I'm glad for them they got to do it, and I'm glad for Celia that she got through it, especially knowing they were in last. It was like, okay, they did something. I mean, she did something that was really hard for her. She said it was the hardest thing in her life. That's all great. But yeah, we have seen this a lot of times. I think just as for somebody who's seen so many seasons, I mean, I looked at that and I'm like, that's freaky. That would be scary to me. But I don't know, we spent a lot of time on it too.
Yeah. I mean, this is around my 60th season of Amazing Race altogether. And I know we need those tasks, but I feel like we've seen them done before and better. And maybe Amazing Race Canada went, they shot for the moon when they had that one task in season 4 where you had to climb on the outside of the cable car. And if you fell, you had to bungee jump. They've never topped that, in my opinion. I don't think any Amazing Race has topped that. I think they went a little bit too scary and they couldn't top it. And so everything else feels like a letdown. But let's go to maybe the one task that maybe had the potential to be ridiculous, and we still didn't quite get there, which was we had our EMT training, and this poor dummy has lost an arm, lost a leg, had a seizure, got into cardiac arrest. What happened? What did he do? What was done to him? How did all of these things happen at once?
I love that they had the blood dripping out of the dummy's arm, though.
Yeah, like
that's
hydraulic
high quality
fluid
stuff. Yeah, it was just coming out. Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about that because it's like the dummy, lost the arm and leg, and then in the middle, always flatlines, and has possibly the least qualified paramedics in these teams that you could ever have. Ika and Dimitri were so funny. Like they're given the practice thing and she's writing down like every word and they're trying to do it and they're sounding out the medicine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they were so funny because they're like, we don't know what we're doing. But Jess, I have to call out the best part of this task beyond the team reaction. It is the deadpan.
Yeah, I knew you were going to like this.
Deadpan paramedics. The least inspired, excited people I've ever heard. They flatlined. It's over.
The guy died.
You did not do well or something. I mean, there were all those things.
Yeah.
It was just, it's over. So I mean, the guy dies, just like, it's over. I wrote it down in capital letters, deadpan paramedic. And they were all this way. It was not just one guy. They were trying to be like, you don't want to be over the top. You can't have the donkey judge being the judge for this one. Just like, oh, he died.
No, but what if he was though, Dan? I want to respect the important job. These guys are frontline heroes, but if you had one of them just unhinged and just yelling at them you killed him. Oh my God, man. What am I going to tell his family? It would be amazing. Be amazing. The deadpan is great. Don't get me wrong. I love a good deadpan. I love the like Wednesday Addams flat effect when they're saying, yes, it appears that he is flatlined.
You've got your patient. I think that was when they succeeded.
Yeah.
That's what they said. You've got your patient. Yes. Just, I'm grasping a little bit at straws here, but those guys, I mean, the teams were like, some of the teams were they're like, oh my gosh, he's flatlining. What do I do? And almost the teams were having a hard time not laughing, which I understand because it's one of the dummy looks so ridiculous. and you're trying to save this dummy and you're trying to take it seriously. But also then, yeah, it's like the teams are being how anyone would probably react to this. And the paramedics are like, this is a noble profession. I must be serious about this. I'm also on TV and I am not an actor. I am someone who's very nervous to be on TV and is very nervous I'm going to mess up my line. So I'm going to use 2-word phrases. But yeah, that was good. I enjoyed that, especially because, again, we knew they tried to make it seem like Evie and Blake and Liese and Celia were both there at the same time, but we never saw them in the same shot. I think they were not there at the same time at all.
Yeah, they really had nothing to work with this episode. It was pretty clear the entire time that there was not a contest here. And I think even Evie and Blake were even trying to pretend. But I think at that point they knew.
Right. Though I did hear, I loved Ica. You know, we haven't mentioned we're in Mississauga is where they are, one of the largest cities in Ontario. And Ica really gives the tourism a boost and says that it's known for traffic. Just known for traffic. That's what they are. Every time you go there, you wait an hour. So I don't know. This isn't a Sudbury situation, but I don't know if that's the I mean, this is a city of like almost 800,000 people population. So this is not a small city. But still, being known for traffic. That's
Yep.
what they got. It's not the towers, not their paramedics, traffic.
The traffic capital of Canada. And they really couldn't do anything with that. We couldn't do like traffic helicopter if we're doing like a thrill task.
Well, they used their helicopter budget last week. They did. Next week they got some sort of helicopter next week too, dropping them in the water. So can't do that every week, Jeff.
No.
I mean, you know.
No, you can't just have a task that's just helicopter. Your detours, your roadblocks, your helicopter.
You can't do like a Tom Cruise and hang off the edge of the helicopter or something. You know, that's probably pushing it. I know. I mean, I'm trying to think of if we missed anything. I mean, we're basically heading for the pit stop here. I should mention, of course, there was kind of a fun dance group at the pit stop. Dance Shala, which I looked it up. They're a Bollywood dance school located there in Mississauga. So I thought that was kind of cool. They did a nice dance. They started out with more of the happy dance. It was the same dance. It was just the background music Amazing Race put in. And then the sad dance later for Liese and Celia. But I thought that was nice. There were like 4 people. But I don't know. I mean, John even told us they will be eliminated, which we knew. But Grace and Joe win the leg. I don't know. They get to go to Florence. They get to see Michelangelo thanks to Expedia.
Yeah.
I mean, not Michelangelo himself. Yeah. They not see his artwork.
Yeah, not the Ninja Turtle, and not the sculptor, but we do get to see his artwork. I mean, there's a lot of cool artwork in Florence. I'm jealous, low key. Yeah, and you get the $10,000 prize, and now Jesse and Jonathan have only won half of the legs. And then we have 2 legs each for Grace and Joe and Evie and Blake. It's starting to feel like a showdown at this point. And I feel like any one of these 3 teams could really heat up at the last minute and bring it all home. And if it's the 3 of them in the finals, I think we've got a pretty good final leg there.
Well, remember, Jess, there's going to be 4 teams in the final because John confirmed it in his next on. He said, as teams race to make the final leg. So, and I think I got a confirmation on, I apologize who sent it, but on social media that there are going to be 10 episodes. Apparently, if you watch this in Canada during the commercials, they give a lot of 3 episodes left, 2 episodes left, those kinds of things. You know, my favorite, of course, is 5 episodes before the season finale. I'm like, so it's 6. Why are you telling me 5?
Yeah, this isn't even
But so I wanted to look at the prize tracker though, and I wanted to let you know Evie and Blake still have won more money thanks to Boost because they got $5,000, so they have 2 trips and $25,000. Grace and Joe have 2 trips and $20,000. Jesse and Jonathan 4 trips, $50,000. That's where we are.
That's good for them. Congratulations to all of the teams. This is fantastic. Shall we go to our questions, Dan?
Yeah, I want to ask. Well, let's do these questions first. I'll ask a question. It's not a fun John one. It's just a question leading into next week. So let's look at these questions here.
All right. So we got more comments than questions, and I think that's down to the fact that the only unanswered question I had personally, Dan, got answered for me before I even asked it, because I want to give a shout out to friend of the podcast, Jack, who sent me this very detailed, very long breakdown of everything that happened this leg, because he happens to be a resident of Mississauga and he followed them around all day. And apparently they did not have a problem with this, which is fantastic. Amazing Race Canada production crew, by all accounts, really professional, excellent, friendly people. And my question was exactly how much of a space was there between Evie and Blake and Liese and Celia? And he does manage to answer this. Evie and Blake finished the truck task about 11 a.m. and they take off. And then Liese and Celia are there at least another hour.
Oh, wow.
And there was a point where they asked if they could have the cameras turned off so they could take a break, which I think is interesting because I've never heard of that being something people can ask. But they were pondering taking the penalty at one point, and it was a full hour. So the fact that they made up that much time and that they even saw another team after that is pretty impressive.
That's interesting. Yeah. And I mean, because it was a little weird because we saw them struggling so much and pretty quickly. I mean, I'm trying to remember if I think maybe we saw them finish, but then they were at the next task and I was like, well, what happened there? So I think it makes sense. And also the show wants to keep moving. But yeah, I think the combination of them being really good at the break dancing and then Evie and Blake having to do both detours did probably help them a little bit where they could at least, get within, I don't know. It probably took a while to get set up to go across the towers, but maybe 20, 30 minutes, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I think the sense I get about the detours is that they tend to take on average about 30 to 45 minutes to complete. So if you have to do both of them, that does kind of throw a big wrench in things. So maybe they could have made it up knowing that two of the teams were U-turned, but yeah, a full hour past everybody else, that's not a good sign. And I can see where that would be really demoralizing. So props to them for keeping it together.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and plus, especially with how hard for her that last task was, the fact that they completed everything and it wasn't one of those where the show was just like, yeah, we're just going to get you to it seemed like they did everything and completed it as it was. I think they saved the very important dummy.
Yes.
I don't know, multiple dummies, I assume, because teams were there at the same time, so whichever one they had, all amputated though, all amputees.
Oh yeah.
But so that's good for them that they got through it. And too bad though, like we said, you never know. We've had the teams past seasons. I know the one team that just fell apart on like the zombie paintball thing or whatever that was. And everybody's like, why? And there's always, I mean, you never know. Like we said, I don't want to rehash it too much, but you never know what's gonna trip.
Yeah, you always have to keep going because you have no idea what's going to happen. Even in a keep on racing leg, something could happen. Some team could have gotten so horribly lost that you show up 2 hours late and they are going to show up 3 hours late. Somebody might take a penalty. Somebody might get injured. Somebody might drop out. You always got to finish it out. And granted, this is why I think you can't take away the non-elimination legs, because people always have to have that hope. But there are many, many things that could happen that could keep you in the race. So you just got to keep your eyes on the prize, run your own race. And Liese and Celia, I think, did that very well, especially considering that this truck task was 50 times harder than we saw on TV for them. So yeah, thanks again to Jack for writing in with these really interesting details about the production process and about how much time this all took, because I think that's a side of it we didn't really see. And also 3 weeks in a row, Dan, we've had locals who've been able to step in with their Canada knowledge. And I love that. Like, you don't get that with other amazing races. Occasionally we'll get somebody who saw the finale being taped, or somebody who lives there, or, spoilers for next season, the finish line is in the town where I live, but I didn't actually see them because I found this out like last week. Anyway, And the best part is, Jack's not the only person who wrote in who's got Mississauga experience this week. We got 2 of them. I want to also give a shout out to Maddie Coulter, who's commented on Facebook and said, I looked up the filming dates, and too bad it was on a weekend. My office is right across the street from those Marilyn Monroe towers. I could see the parking lot in a bunch of the shots. And she sends a picture of the towers that she took on her walk yesterday, and it's a beautiful shot. These are really cool looking towers, I have to say. I would guess that we also have Lynn Brarian is probably also from this area, given that their comment was this was the most Mississauga episode they possibly could have done. And then they have a question to follow up. How do you think the trucks in the parking lot were arranged so that E.B. and Blake didn't realize Lacey and Celia were still there when they left? It made no sense. And this is something that I do not know the answer to, Dan. So I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I mean, they sort of gave us one shot where you kind of saw them far away, and they were in this like semicircle formation. And I mean, I think this is just one of those. I have no facts on this. I'm just saying this likely is one of those chaos kind of things. Like Evie and Blake probably they did take a decent amount of time, because they were on the first flight and they were the second last ones out. So they probably were just focused on, wow, we're really struggling with this. This is bad. And maybe they were on one end of the group of trucks versus the other. Maybe Lacey and Celia were inside the truck doing something. Maybe they were taking their break. I don't know. Probably not. But I think it's pretty easy. It's different when you're all like sitting there waiting for a roadblock, or even you're all doing something where everyone's like out in the open. But this, I feel like, especially if you're struggling, once you get it, you're like, we're out of here. And you just assume. It's like when teams get really lost and they're just like, nobody could get more lost than us. And then they get to the mat and they're like, you're second. And they're like, what? It's like you always assume probably at this, you probably get a little catastrophizing there where you're just like, we're done. And they didn't see them. And they also, they never really saw them. So I think they assumed as they went through each step, well, they got to be ahead of us. There's no way we struggled so much. Nobody would struggle as much as us. Well,
yeah. And especially since most of the activity took place inside the truck. If that truck is parked facing away from you and you finish and you're just focused on getting out of there, and like the 2 trucks next to you are empty because those people already left or you saw them leave. Yeah, I could see where it would be very easy to draw the conclusion that they were the last ones because they were that bad at the task. But somebody could always be worse than you. That is the Amazing Race motto.
Yes, that is really all you need to do is have someone be worse than you. Winning legs is great, especially when they give you $10,000 in a trip. But as we've seen with some of the teams that are left in the final 5, we have Nippy and Magoo, we have Ike and Dimitri. Neither team has won a leg. Still here. I mean, Ike and Dimitri have been a lot closer, but it doesn't really matter. It's like anything can happen here.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I would be surprised to see either of those teams in the winner's circle, but stranger things have happened. We've had plenty of teams win the final leg after not winning any other legs.
I agree. So let me ask this. I know we had a few more comments that I could mention, but since we're talking about it, next week there's 5. The thought is it's going to be like the previous seasons we talked about, not all of them, but previous ones that have final 4. Are Nippy and Magoo likely the lovable 5th place exit? Because I mean, it could be someone else, but I feel like they're most likely to go out 5th based on placement and the fact that they haven't been near the top. But there's been plenty of times where a team goes out. I feel like the Jesse and Jonathan, Evie and Blake thing probably continues. Everybody else, But what do you think? I mean, who's the team that is most likely to go out next week?
I mean, we gotta say odds are it's Nippy and Magoo. Although they've been solid this entire time, I think they're a little bit outclassed when it comes to the other teams that are all like kind of more visible threats. But that being said, anything could happen. You could see any of these teams go out in like a shocking blaze of glory. I could see somebody getting super lost. There's not a lot of margin for error when there's only 5 teams left. So Nippy and Magoo have a couple of lucky tasks. I don't know, like say Grace and Joe fall out of it. They've fallen out of it in a bad way a couple of times and probably should have gotten eliminated for a couple of those. So I could see it happening. I could see it happening to Ike and Dimitri. We've even seen Jesse and Jonathan be at the back of the pack, and Evie and Blake. So all of these teams have been in danger at some point, and they could be in danger again.
Yeah, I agree. And there isn't an obvious, sometimes there's an obvious story gap where you have teams where you're like, all we've heard about is their story. They're likely going to make it. And then others we haven't. I mean, actually, we've heard quite a bit about Nippy and Magoo so far, but we've heard a little bit about everybody. So I don't sense an obvious, like, there's no team that's just been purple that obviously would go out. I feel like the show's done a pretty good job of at least giving us a pretty good gauge of all these teams.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And I wanted to give one more shout out. Amanda Hart on Facebook had a very funny comment. Said, I was laughing so hard over one task in Mississauga just being loading packages, as most things I buy online come through there. No other comments. I just thought it was a hilarious task.
That is funny that's like, of course they're in Mississauga. It's the most Mississauga episode, I've been told, that they have something about packing. Yeah, and we also got a picture. Mama's Pinky Toe did a screenshot of Magoo like supplicating. She called it the Great Sandworms of Mississauga. There's a lot of different names for these towers, I gotta say. But yeah, I noticed it the second time after he did. Like, there's this shot which they held for a bit of him with both arms up, and then the two towers. Kind of a nicely put together shot, actually, the way that they did it. Like while I think it was while Nippy was like finishing, and he was so pumped. Both of them were just, he was so happy for her that she did it, and then the hug and everything. But that was a great shot.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And I love it when we get little artistic things like that in there. So I think this brings us to the end of our podcast, Dan. I don't know what else to tell the fine people, except that we appreciate all the great feedback we've gotten all season. If you want to give us more feedback, we are always happy to have you slide into our DMs or just add us on the socials. You can find me at Haymaker Hattie on Instagram or Jess Liese at Blue Sky. Dan is at the Dan Heaton on Blue Sky, and I assume also Instagram.
Yes.
How do you prefer to be found, sir?
I'm fine either way. I think my Instagram is set up where I have to approve people, but as long as you're a real person, I'll always approve people. I don't want to oversell the frequency of Instagram content that I put out lately, but
I literally do not post anything about Amazing Race on my Instagram. It's all pictures of my kid and like stupid things. Like the other day I had a lemon that had a sticker on it that said buy me, and I'm like, this lemon can't tell me what to do, and so I posted it to Instagram. That's the level of discourse you're getting. I do occasionally talk about Amazing Race on Blue Sky, and we do talk about it a lot on Facebook, where we have a group called Amazing Race on RHAP, which you can join. You can go to robswebsite.com/tar group, and you can apply to join there, or you can just search for it in Facebook and it'll come up. And make sure you answer those questions, or we're not going to approve you. So pay attention to the group rules. They're easy questions. We're not killing you with trivia or anything, but we just want to know that you're a real human and you're not going to try to extort people inside the Amazing Race group, because we're a healthy little ecosystem here and we don't want that disrupted. Dan, what else is going on with you?
Well, I have two things to mention, which is rare. I've not had anything to mention all season. But first of all, this summer, Jess, I went to a lot of regional amusement parks because I used to do a show called Tomorrow's Society Podcast about theme parks, and I loved it. Did it for 10 years. But so this summer I was just going to parks, having fun. And I was like, I've got a lot of opinions right now about all these various parks in my area, whether it's Six Flags or others. And I'm like, I just want to talk about that. So I just recorded a one-off extra Tomorrow's Society podcast that I released this week. So the show's not fully back or anything, but I just was like, I got a lot of stuff in the brain. I've been sitting around for a while. I'll throw this out there. So you can go to tomorrowsociety.com, or you can look where podcasts are. And also, I forgot to mention this last week, I was a guest on a podcast called Marty Called, which is a theme park podcast where we drafted, I love drafts, we drafted Disney World pre-shows from entire history of Disney World. Not nerdy at all, Jess. Totally normal.
Wow. Totally normal thing to review.
It's fun. Just search for Marty Called on wherever you listen to podcasts. It's with two other guys, Tim and Ben. I thought it was fun. So check that out. If you don't get enough from me every week here and you like theme parks, those are both fun things.
Excellent stuff, Dan. Yeah, and I don't have anything new to report except that we are just about to get into Amazing Race US is coming down the pike. And Mike Bloom and I will be covering this again with some special guests and some not so special regular guests. But we have a very, very special Amazing Race Big Brother crossover event that we're going to be dropping in your feeds very soon. And we're recording yet another one of those on next week. So we got 2 things coming up that are Big Brother Amazing Race coded. And as someone who's not a Big Brother stan, it's been very informative and educational for me to get into this world. And pray for me, because Big Brother Twitter is going to be on me all season this fall. And I don't know your show. I'm just reporting what I see. I don't have a favorite. So don't at me. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I am serious. In all seriousness, so I'm looking very much forward to getting back on the horse with Mike Bloom and talking about Amazing Race US. And also, I believe, Dan, you and I will be dropping into some other podcasts in the near future to talk Amazing Race Australia with our friends from Down Under. And I'm very excited about that as well. That premieres this coming Monday. So if you have Australian credentials, check that out as well. So thanks once again, Dan, for joining me this week. This was very fun, as always. And thanks to everybody behind the scenes who helped make this podcast possible. And of course, thanks to all of you, the listeners. And we will see you next week.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.